So it's undeniable that the pandemic has forced us to reinvent everything we know about how we work and live. In order to thrive in this complex world, we need agility, so the ability to move, think, understand quickly, zoom in and zoom out, and have perspective, see the big picture. We need resilience, the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties, to self-regulate, regulate the nervous system in order to recover from stress. And we also need compassion, empathy, and emotional intelligence. We need to be able to take care of ourselves and take care of others, to care about how we feel and how others feel, and try to care for ourselves and others better. In order to cultivate agility and resilience, we have to start with the mind. Understanding how the mind works will be key in changing the way we live and work for the better, especially when living in such uncertain and turbulent times. Our brain patterns affect our thoughts that shape our emotions, direct our choices and behaviors, and shape our experiences. Our mindset will affect how we cope and determine how we will deal with challenges. So we're going to look into some patterns in which our brains function and our minds work that might stand in the way of our ability to thrive, and see how with targeted mindfulness-based leadership coaching we can change these patterns in order to cultivate more agility and resilience, emotional intelligence, and empathy. So these mind patterns are, first of all, the tendency of the mind to wander, to project to the future and be focused on the negative, and of course be reactive when stressed. So the first one, mind wandering and distraction, unfortunately our brains are not naturally wired for agility. We have a difficult time zooming in and being focused. Unlike other animals, humans spend a lot of time thinking about the past or the future, all things that never happened or will never happen at all. And think about it. How many times when talking with a colleague, your mind wanders to what you forgot to do before, or what's the next email you need to send, or how great was that vacation you took 12 years ago? The staggering research shows that we are distracted on average 47% of the time, and specifically 37% of the time while we're at work. The average employee loses 2.1 hours a day to distractions and interactions. We're distracted roughly every 10.5 minutes. And what's more interesting is that a stressed and agitated mind will wander 2 to 3 times more than a mind that is calm and balanced. So that is important in these times when stress is really skyrocketing. Researchers have found that the brain's default way to react to the relentless flow of distraction, especially in these turbulent times, and especially in this attention economy, is to basically try to attend to it all at the same time. Our brain actually defaults to what we call multitasking. Distraction is the default setting of the human brain in order to avoid dangers. And think about it. You start work in the morning, you're clear about your priorities, and then the phone rings. Your manager needs some input. Then a colleague passes you by and you help them with a question. Then you go into a meeting, and then you get a few pings from notifications from Slack or some other messaging platform, and you start replying. And before you know it, it's 4 p.m. and you haven't even tackled half of your priorities for that day. You might have done a lot of things and you think that you're productive, but you haven't focused on what's important. So urgent kind of overcrowds what's important. And from a neurological perspective, our brain is not capable of focusing on 2 things at the same time. In reality, when we believe we're multitasking, we are actually switching between tasks. And research shows that task switching can cost up to 40% of our productive time. So when we multitask, in fact, we take longer to complete a task, we produce lower quality work, we use up more mental energy and end up performing worse, leading others worse. Not exactly what we're looking for in order to thrive. So our mind wanders, but where does it wander to? Our brain craves certainty, and it is wired to plan for the future. So we project into the future, creating countless what-if scenarios, trying to predict potential threats, avoid them, and restore the comfort of certainty. That's what we want. We want safety. But when we don't get enough accurate information, as it happens when we're living in an extremely uncertain and turbulent time like these, our brains start spinning into worry, anxiety, and rumination. You know, how many times have you played that game in your head? What if they don't like my presentation? What if the client doesn't show up to our meeting? What if I don't hit my monthly targets? What if the pandemic never ends? What if we never work from home again? It's like that famous Mark Twain quote, I've lived through some terrible catastrophes in my life, some of which have actually happened. And so as the brain focuses on the future in order to avoid threats, it is only natural that it will skew toward what is negative. It's only normal. So the negative bias is our tendency not only to register negative stimuli more readily, but also to dwell on these events. We give more psychological significance to negative experiences than positive ones of the same intensity. In fact, researchers say that negative emotions have an impact close to 3 times stronger than positive ones. And sometimes we say that positive experiences slide like oil on Teflon, while negative experiences stick like Velcro. And it's true, right? How many times we get one negative comment at work and then we think about it the entire day. We go home to our partner and the only thing we want to talk about is that one bad thing, whereas many other good things might have happened. Or we receive an evaluation report and there's a bounty of positive comments and there's just one area of development and our mind tends to stick to that one. So that bias, that negative bias affects our behavior. And that is especially crucial when we're navigating turbulent and uncertain times because it tends to make us more pessimistic and tends to make us focus more on the problem rather than the solution. Focus on what's not working rather than finding ways to deal with that with a calm mind. It also impairs our judgment and our wisdom, and it perpetuates stress and anxiety. So, stress reactivity. All that we talked about before, it gets exacerbated when we operate under chronic stress. And let's be honest, the majority of the world population, the world working population at the moment, business population, is operating under chronic stress after the pandemic. The fear-based primitive part of the brain, which is the limbic system, hijacks our brain, perceiving everything we experience as a threat. And it puts us in a near constant state of what we call fight, flight, or freeze, pumped up with cortisol and adrenaline, the stress hormones. So when something happens, we are triggered to either go into fight mode, very defensive and attack, or into flight mode, trying to run away, or freeze. So we kind of not able to deal with difficulty. So we end up exhausted, unfocused, and unhappy. And the irony is that when the stress reaction is triggered, neurologically, we cannot access the wiser part of our brain, which is the prefrontal cortex right here in front. When we most need it, we cannot operate with greater wisdom, but we rather react unconsciously on autopilot. And that impairs our judgment and our performance. So what do we do? Thankfully, our brain is actually incredibly plastic. We have over 100 billion neurons in our brain that are firing together and wiring together based on how we use it. So we can train our brain to develop certain skills that will help navigate difficulty better. Mindfulness training is actually a neurological intervention that has been used for more than 40 years in the top companies across the world that is scientifically proven to change the structure of the brain in a way that helps downregulate the nervous system, enhance focus, increase awareness, cultivate empathy, compassion, improve performance, communication. No wonder it's being practiced by some of the most successful businesses in Fortune 500, Fortune 500, and Fortune 100 companies, CEOs, and top-performing athletes. Going back to the patterns of the brain, we're going to look at how mindfulness training can help us mitigate some of the negative effects of these habitual mind patterns by cultivating specific skills. So we're going to start with distraction. We're going to build focus. So with mindfulness practice, we learn to train our mind to zoom in where we choose to, and in this way develop focus. So the way we do attention training is we choose an object to focus on, such as the brain, such as body sensations, the breath or sounds. And when our mind gets distracted, which invariably it will do, as we saw before, we notice that distraction and we reorient our attention back to the object without judgment, but with great interest and with great compassion. And so the more we practice in this way by focusing on the present moment, the more we build the muscle of attention. But we also build the muscle of compassion, self-compassion first. And then that compassion can spread out to others in our lives and in our work. So we train ourselves in emotional intelligence, compassion, empathy, and awareness through that simple way of training our mind. Another useful mindfulness practice that uses in many corporate mindfulness programs has to do with our ability to take a pause when we're triggered. So when we're triggered, first we stop and refrain from taking any action. Then we train ourselves to know how to take a breath, a conscious breath, inhaling and exhaling consciously. The next step is to observe, where we notice our thoughts, body sensations, and emotions as they are in this moment. So we actually notice and repeat internally to ourselves the thoughts that we're having, the body sensations that we are feeling in this moment, and how we feel, the emotions. And then we proceed by making a more conscious choice, by having taken a step back, and rather than being reactive, choose how we will respond consciously. So plenty of research shows that by turning our attention to the present moment in the body, by focusing on the breath, calms immediately the nervous system. And when we recognize and name our thoughts and emotions, it allows us to take a step back and gain perspective. We feel that all these disasters in our mind actually have less of a grip on us, and we are more equipped to make more wise, compassionate, and beneficial decisions for everyone. Also, we learn how to regulate the nervous system and return to an optimal level of functioning where we are present, calm, engaged, and alert rather than in hyperarousal state, which is the fight or flight reaction, or a hypoarousal state, which is a freeze reaction where we're unmotivated and unwilling to continue. These are the extremes of the nervous system reactions. And in the middle is where the window of tolerance lies and where we want to be operating. So the more we train our nervous system, our brains to focus, the more we cultivate that ability to maintain our nervous system within that very healthy, calm, and present state. Basically, we are changing from the inside. We are creating new habits for mental and physical well-being that change the way we live and work for the better. And in this way, we are creating more mindful, more sustainable organizations with more self-awareness, awareness of others, self-leadership, and a very compassionate way of doing the work that we do. Thank you.